very good evening on this 4th day of February 2019, the first Monday of this year, of this month, I would rather say. And yes, this is a Monday report. Townhall coming to you live from the KICC. This is right at the center of Nairobi, where a big discussion has been going on just how do you get Nairobi moving. And car-free days, BRT, you name it, that has all been part of the conversation here. And tonight, we will have that conversation with the people who matter in this discussion. But first, my colleague Mashirima Kapombe is somewhere with a lively audience that's going to weigh in on this conversation. Kapombe.
Naam, Jo, maswali ni mengi kuhusiana na hayo tuliyoyataja kuhusiana na mabasi ya BRT ambayo yanatarajiwa kuwa yatapunguza msongamano jijini. Lakini kuna wale ambao wanataka kuona ni vipi ambavyo usalama utaimarishwa hata wakati ambapo serikali inataka kuhakikisha kuwa magari hayaingii jijini katika kile ambacho kimetajwa kama car free days. Watakuwa wanauliza maswali yao katika kipindi hiki. Jo.
All right, thank you very much. And yes, we'll just introduce the panel up here. We have Piers Charles Hinga, who's in charge of housing and urban planning. I think I got it right. We have Jerry Sherere, who's also an urban planning expert, who's going to help us to understand some of the issues. And of course, Mr. Francis Gitau, who is the acting CEO of the Nairobi Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, Namata. So Bwana Piers, let's just start with you. We've seen some back and forth about car-free days. Let's start there because a lot of people are wondering, what was that about? Is it going to happen? Why was it postponed? Where do we stand today?
Thank you very much, and good evening to the viewers. If you may recall, sometime last year in April, there was a team that went to State House to present to His Excellency the President, the Nairobi Regeneration Team, about the various strategies that we need to undertake to start regenerating our metropolis, and specifically Nairobi. Now, item number 8 on what was presented and actually was released to the public. I remember the presidential press team released it to the public, was the pilot car-free day. And it was supposed to be done within the 30 days window. And it was exactly what it means. It's a pilot. It's something that there are plans that exist on paper. But if you're talking about a car-free day in a city like Nairobi, it's very complex. And that is why this pilot targeted a very small portion of area, which was largely a portion of Moi Avenue, Harambe Avenue, Taifa Road, City Hall Way. And then we wanted to also bring an element of vibrancy back into the CBD. And then we also have our traders, who have got all these running battles with the Kanjo, the policemen from the city council. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea is how, if we are going to decongest and not have cars coming in, how do we bring some element of vibrancy and trading into the CBD? So
was this about reducing the congestion, traffic in Nairobi? Was this about giving some extra opportunity for the traders to do business? Because a lot of people are confused about what is the central objective of this car-free days, if and when they start.
It is both, right? Mm-hmm. So the first point was decongestion, right? The second element is if you close those streets. We've got two major parking lots here. One is a sunken car park. And now since there are no cars coming in, the idea was to turn it into some form of a flea market, where we then organize the traders. We reached out to the business community. A lot of financial institutions came to the party, and we designed prototype trading stalls. We're speaking to the bigger businesses, the likes of the food, like Java's. We've got our energy department that was going to put floodlights. We actually we knew that this could also be the advent of this 24-hour economy.
So why the back and forth? It's on. There's a pilot. It is not there now. It's been postponed. What really happened there between the time the announcement was made and the time that the announcement was made that it was not going to happen? Because that was a space of less than a week, I think.
Well, actually, a couple of days. Yeah. As you know, we're a very democratic society, and what eventually happened is the city county, Nairobi County, was responsible for organizing the traders, and they've been doing. They are part of the Nairobi regeneration team, and so they had a list of almost 5,000 traders that have been vetted. But the minute we went to the public and spoke about this car-free day and the traders, everybody came to the table, and there's this word you like to hear about, cartels, and everybody kept on saying, no, that is not a genuine trader, it's a cartel. And it became very noisy. So you're like to sort
that out. We'll come back to that in a moment. But Njeri, as an expert who has seen how other cities do this, when you look at what's going on in Nairobi, the debate, what is that is going on in your mind about where do we go from here?
Okay, well, thank you for having me. That's a very broad question, but I'll try to answer it the best I can. One of the things I really appreciate about this discussion is that we're finally talking about something that's been on our minds for a very long time, which is traffic. Where does it come from? What are the interventions that we can implement to make sure that resources, people, goods, services move freely throughout the metropolitan area? Because remember, Nairobi is no longer that fish-shaped geographic area that we have. It's now a large, bustling metropolis. So I like the fact that the discussion has started. I like the fact that these proposals are coming up. I'd just like to point out that Nairobians have actually been holding car-free days. Well, I guess they're called... we've been calling them something different. For the last 3 years, we've held what we call Nairobi Placemaking Week in the CBD. And basically what that is blocking up off a portion of the street and encouraging people to get onto the street, take back the street, sell their wares, express themselves through art, express themselves through various talents, and that has actually been very well received. So the reason I'm glad that we're having this discussion is I think it's time that we married policy and what's actually happening on the ground. And I think that discussions like this will actually bring us closer together.
All right. Bwana Gitau, NAMATA has been in existence, I think, since the presidential executive order, almost 2 years to the day today. Many people wondering, where does NAMATA come in? There are many different institutions that we hear about every time we are talking about traffic in Nairobi, the congestion. There is a county government, there is a regeneration, there is a ministry, and it can be a little bit dizzying just trying to figure out who is exactly in charge of what. What do you do exactly?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ageo, for having me. I just want first to put NAMATA in perspective. NAMATA is basically an intergovernmental agency. It is formed at the interface of the county government and the national government, at the apex being a council, where the council has a chair from the infrastructure, the CS infrastructure chairs it, and the deputy is the governor of Nairobi. In the council, we have the other 4 governors within the dormitory counties of Nairobi, that is Kajiado, Machakos, Murang'a, and Kiambu. The work of NAMATA, in a nutshell, is to ensure that we are having an integrated rapid transportation plan for the city of Nairobi. This rapid transportation plan defines the urban mobility plan. The urban mobility plan describes the kind of route networks within the city, and it also addresses the demand question. Where is it that we require to have certain capacity to ferry people? At the heart of ferrying people, the customer for NAMATA is the individual, the one who makes a trip in the morning to go to work, the other one who makes a trip to go to school.
But you don't seem to feature much. We see all these other people.
I absolutely agree. Namata got aboard in June 2018.
Okay, let's get some thoughts from the audience already. My colleague Mashirima Kapombe is in there, and I don't know wananchi wanasemaje. Mashirima.
Naam, Jo, kuna mengi ambayo yangependwa kutajwa, lakini nitaanza na hili swala la BRT kutoka hapa mbele. Constant, please ask your question.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, everybody. My name is Constant. I'm also an urban planner. I just have a question. Having analyzed the various statements that have come out in the public and what has been presented by the government, now one thing that's critical in transportation planning is the link between land use management and mobility. 5 years ago, Nairobi launched the Nairobi Integrated Development Plan, the new plan. To date, we've not seen any release of development control guidelines, neither have we seen any local area planning going on, which is critical if we want to get into the position of doing neighborhood unit planning that determines a lot as far as points of origin and destinations, which eventually are what determines the transportation planning. What we have now is a lot of what we can call random planning from the Nairobi City County, which is the planning authority. We have 35-story buildings being approved on local streets. We have other units of almost 100 units being approved on arterial streets that are not even in line with the BRT or some of the mass transit plans. How do we does the government intend to eventually have a way in which you merge the land use planning and the transportation planning in order to ensure the proper mobility of the people in the city?
Thank you. Joe, labda tuchukue swali lingine ambalo pia linafungamana na hilo. Jose.
Asante sana. Thank you very much. I am Jose Omole from the Architectural Association of Kenya. Mine is about the car-free days. Basically, it's not a new concept to have car-free days. This thing has been there since 1974. Ciclovia from Bogota have been doing it, and there are usually two outcomes. One is sensitization of the citizens, so that people realize there are other uses for the streets, that there are other modes of transport besides cars. So you sort of culture people into alternative modes. Secondly, it's an experimentation tool, so that you know that if I close this road, this is how the public is going to behave. What I feel about the way the government has been going about it is that it's been stop-go. It's not well planned. We have had car-free days here, and there are very many of us who are very capable of organizing these kinds of things, but it almost feels like it was very random. So my question is to probably the Namata CEO and the PS. You've talked about urban mobility plan. Is there a plan? Where can we find it? Where can we see it? How can we interrogate it so that we can add value to it? Because it feels like there was no consultation with the public before those decisions were made. So when they're being presented, then now you realize that the public is not accepting, then you withdraw. So it looks it gives it a bad name, kind of.
Sawa, nadhani hao maswali mawili yanaweza kujibiwa kabla tuendelee.
Let's start with you, Wanagitawa, about that whole question of a mobility plan, because it came from you. Then we'll bring it this way to the PS.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Mr. Mule. AK, an urban mobility plan. What we are doing currently is that for every city, there is a calibration of a travel demand model. What you will find with the many studies that have happened in the Nairobi urban space is that they have individually studied the mobility corridors. Like we have a study on Juja Road, we have a study on Jogo Road, we have a study on Mombasa Road. What we are doing is we are correcting data that is the gap data on frequency occupancy, issues to do with boarding and alighting, so that we can develop an integrated plan. Because the solution for Nairobi is not on individual modes of transport. The aim of government is to integrate commuter rail and bus rapid transit and non-motorized traffic on the feeder network and the trunk network to ensure we optimize on the infrastructure space that we have, and again bring in rolling stock that will meet the current demand and forecasted demand.
So you're saying right now, if he wants to see it, there's nothing to see yet.
It is being developed.
Okay,
there's nothing to see now. And I think once we develop it, we'll have a comprehensive stakeholder
Okay,
consultation.
Bwana Pierce, the concern here is that there seems to be a disconnect between buildings and how we use land, essentially, and the transportation system. I imagine that from an expert point of view, they need to go together. That's what the gentleman there said.
Absolutely. You know, the way Nairobi has grown, and most of our urban areas, they've grown. And, you know, for many years of doing things the wrong way, where we develop and then we plan later, that is what has caused us to be where we are. As the gentleman, I think, Constant, correctly, you know, alluded to the fact that you go to City Hall, they have got PDPs. Some of them are not updated. Plan development plans. Mm-hmm. I think the one for Nairobi is 1960 something? 1973? It's a 1973 PDP plan. And this whole thing actually integrates with all the other stuff that we've been talking about, even riparian areas and the encroachment, because it's all part of the urban planning. So we don't have spatial development plans that sort of lead us to say that this section of the city is where we are going to be doing industrialization. This is where housing is going to be. The city just grew up. And whether it is an unintended consequences, now we have got a devolution that is here. Now we hope and encouraging the counties that they need to foster land use planning, but link it to transport planning.
So how have we survived all these years? I mean, we are just moving along without a plan. I mean, I don't understand it.
No, it's not that you don't have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
You have a land use plan that does not talk to your transport planning. And that is where the disconnect lies. So we have plans, people are building. But in Kileleshwa, if you're building in Kileleshwa, the number of people that are living in Kileleshwa, does that talk to the transport planning that you have? Because you see, it's not just about putting the 36-story building you're talking about.
What I'm not understanding is how we haven't figured that out for 50 years since independence. You know,
there is something that, you know, I'm new in government. I joined government in March last year. And one of the things that I
saw that coming, but I'm just
no, I'm not running away. I'm not running away. Actually, one of the things that has been a bit of a sore point is, you know, we have got a lot of good plans. We talk about BRT. I think there are about 69 studies, okay? And one of the things that we have not done very well as a country is to get into implementation. So even this land use planning and transport planning is not new, right? Now, the reason why there's so much noise right now, and it's exciting for us, is because now something is finally happening. Car-free day is not new. We've spoken about it, but now government is leading, talking about a pilot. Then there is noise. So the noise is good. We talk about BRT. People now, everybody is on to BRT. Everybody is a specialist in BRT. It is good because it means we have now moved out of boardroom and talk shows and all that stuff. We are getting into actual.
Jerry, you have been looking perplexed all this while when this discussion is going on. How do we move on for those many years without the plans that we need to make this a sensible city, like what you experienced from just observing other places?
Well, in Kenya's case, I'd say for a very long time we had top-down planning, top-down governance, top-down policy making. And I think Kenyans spoke in, you know, when we got not the new constitution, the current constitution, and in that constitution it says that citizens are actually responsible for coming up with their own solutions, their own development solutions, which is why Bwana Hinga is experiencing the noise. For us in the industry also, it's very exciting. But I think there's an opportunity when it comes to planning that we've missed and that maybe we need to discuss further as a country, and that is the issue of the fact that resources do not respect boundaries. Okay, so Namata, I think, is a response to that quagmire. If you live in Rongai, that's Kajiado County, your job is in Nairobi, you will use that road to come to Nairobi for work. And because neighborhood like Rongai sprung up, what we are seeing actually is something that we call in planning a jobs housing imbalance. Yeah, your job is here, your work is here, you need to get there somehow. So I think we need to start talking about regional or metropolitan plans. We started off very well with the Ministry of Nairobi Metropolitan Development, started off very well, but unfortunately that ministry did not have the legal mandate to implement. So I'm glad we're having this conversation about transportation. Let bygones be bygones, but I know that if we come up with a regional plan or a metropolitan plan that meshes both what Namata is doing with what Bwana Hinga is doing in terms of urban planning, affordable housing, making sure that we have the adequate physical and social infrastructure in this area, I think we'll be off to a good start. But it starts with a comprehensive plan that takes into account the resources of a region, regardless of maybe political or geographic boundaries.
All right, so we'll come back with more details here, but I'm taking you to my colleague Mashirima Kapombe.
Na mjo, baadhi ya maswali ambayo niko nayo hadi sasa ni wale ambao nataka kujua ni vipi ambavyo serikali itajumuisha mfumo wa BRT pamoja na wale ambao hawatumii magari ya umma, yani kama wale ambao wanatembea. Pia kuna swali kuhusiana na jinsi serikali inapania kuwashughulikia wale walio na ulemavu. Hayo yote ni baada ya matangazo haya.